we only have 8 in this time.
Right.
So, I mean.
Well, because it has to go on next year's fiscal budget. Yeah, next year's.
Wait for the little green one.
I've heard. One of our teachers, Cheryl, she was like,
Yeah, blue light means go.
So, I don't know, anybody been in that vendor hall, they have magic people. As you know, I was like, the magic ball. They're like, what do you shop? They're like, do you want one there? I was like, no. I have no idea. I just want to get some magic ball. You heard CJ Reynolds this morning, he's so like anyone. All education say that.
So when people are like, oh, God, how about
Yeah, you're like, no.
they just don't.
If you just nod and smile, they think you're in.
This is one of the first years that I've basketball team. Most likely be involved in my tennis and a long time. So yes, that's kind of exciting. You're like, oh, I can.
Yeah, the football team is only for teenagers, doesn't it?
No. And to that, like, don't even mention other schools.
Oh,
Don't mention that.
It's funny. I get it. And you run my course like balls on the ground, like penned up balls on the ground.
Everybody at some point has a picture of me in my house.
Why haven't?
See, I've been here 6 years and I haven't
No,
done it.
a friend of mine was up there and he was trying to come up with a singing. And he's like, come up, see us sing, and then we're going to go see dinner with this one. Yeah. So I go, all of us there, and I was like, somebody just said, let me know, and he was like, he wasn't for turkey, and I was like, because I know the guy in the costume. And I was like, I don't let this anyone wait for social media, so I don't even know what that picture is. I'm pretty sure it's not. Super bad. Oh, yeah. I got a text message because I'm a volunteer for D2. I got a text message like, Erica, he's not edible, please don't disturb her. It's like, only in Pittsburgh, did you get a text message like that? And I go, oh, I never should do that. My husband's from Pittsburgh. So he texted me, he's like, pierogies. So like, oh yeah, right. You can't do anything in Pittsburgh without, you know, it has to be black and yellow, and it has to be pierogies.
We're so close. I'm excited about this. I'm in high school. My friend used to so
This is a rabbit hole.
I'm
And I
sure.
am only watching this because of the rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
There was one earlier today, actually, somebody else was doing it.
There's been a couple.
Yeah, there was a poster session on it too. I was the only one who did this last year, and I think I did it. So it's really cool. I'm waiting for the little red thing to go blue, because that's the recorder. So, is this like 45? Should I start? 48? Alright, well then I'm starting. It doesn't have to go. Hi everybody!
Hi.
Thanks for coming. A, work, on, clicker.
welcome to a presentation called Copyright in the Digital Age. A little bit about me. My name is Melissa Ampiro. My background is in ELA. I spent the last, I'm going to put the project ball down. Spent the last 20 years teaching 11th and 12th grade ELA at Bermudian Springs School District, which is a really tiny school district near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. As of December 9th, I left the classroom and I started at the Lincoln Intermediate Unit as a staff developer teaching teachers. I've been doing work, I've been presenting at PEAP for a couple of years now, and what I really found was my passion was teaching teachers, so that's kind of what brought me here. That is my, please feel free to tweet me, that's my website, and I do have a hashtag try, rinse, repeat. My classroom philosophy has become do it again, be better tomorrow than you were yesterday, growth mindset kind of stuff, so that's sort of where I'm going. But I stumbled upon copyright as an ELA teacher because I violated it a lot, and realized that we do as teachers a lot. So I sort of tried to jump my way into, like, what is copyright? What does it do? And it is a rabbit hole. So what I want to do today is talk to you about what's happening in classrooms when it comes to copyright, and give you some resources that you can use in your classrooms, because we have two sort of issues going on. So this is the definition of copyright. The Oxford English Dictionary defines copyright as the exclusive legal right given to an originator or an assignee to print, publish, perform, film, or record literary, artistic, or musical material, and to authorize others to do the same. Okay, that's the OED definition of copyright. And we sort of all sort of know what that is, and you can't steal somebody's stuff, and you have to give them credit. There was a law about copyright notice that went from anything before March 1989 had to have a copyright notice, and there was a you had to renew copyright notice within that window, and if those copyrights weren't renewed, that is now all fair game. Okay? Starting in 1989, anything that you publish that has your name on it, that is identifiable to a person, is copyrighted. On the internet, wherever. Okay? The only things that can't be copyrighted are if you work for a government entity and you publish something on a government website, it belongs to the government. It doesn't belong to you personally. So one of the things that I realized was, of course, I was teaching my kids citations and to give them, give sources credit, but how were we infringing on copyright? So when we talk copyright in a classroom, we have this really cool umbrella as teachers. We have like this educational window that we can sort of use stuff and say, oh, but it's for school, right? But we have to remember that there is business, entertainment, and a whole bunch of other fields outside that umbrella. So I realized that when we're teaching kids and we're using that umbrella of education, we have to remember to teach our kids that when they're not under the umbrella of education, they have to follow the other rules. How many of your kids are making YouTube channels? Tossing stuff on TikTok? Right? They're all over the place. They're all over social media, and they are violating copyright if we don't teach them how. So I started to, in my classroom, be very conscious of what I did and when I explained whether or not this was under that umbrella. So I want to start sort of with the umbrella of education. Have we seen educators get in trouble for copyright violation recently? I can give you 3 examples. June. In June, a school district in Houston, Texas, got their hands on a copy of a test prep booklet. They purchased it. They then proceeded to make copies for everyone in their district and copied off, like whited out the do not reproduce without permission. And the test prep company nailed them, and they were fined. Now, from all of my research, just so you know, if you as an individual teacher choose to violate copyright, it's on you. But if your district tells you to do something that is a copyright violation, it is on them. So we also have to kind of think of that. Okay. And there were teachers that were like, we shouldn't do this, and the district said do it anyway, nobody will notice. Well, somebody noticed. And it was a huge fine. That was in June. In December, June of 2019, in December, I don't know if anybody saw the CNN article about a Canadian school district, a bunch of Canadian school districts, that are now required to produce 7 years worth of back lesson plans. How many of you can do that? I'm not sure I could. Because companies that were in charge of copyright and rights for copies of things were like, schools have been violating this left and right, show us your stuff, you owe us money. Thank you. And the Canadian court said, yeah, they win. Work it over. Right? In February 4th, a school district in Texas, why does it always have it in Texas? Decided that for a fundraiser night, they were going to play The Lion King. According to the rules, you cannot play a movie for pleasure without having the rights to do so. Like, just because you bought it and you brought it into your classroom, that's not rights, because it's a public showing. And so Disney was like, the company that actually owned the rights to it was like, hey, you owe us. And they charged I guess the school had made something like $800, and they're like, you owe $250 in back, like, copyright for this. Now, Disney did the right thing and was like, we'll donate the money back to you, but don't do it again. Like, a day later, the CEO of Disney was like, oh my gosh, yeah, sorry. But that's just 3 that I found just when I Googled teachers and copyright. So what I want to do is I want to go over a couple of examples. These are things that I know have happened in school, in classrooms, and just tell me whether or not you think it's copyright violation. Have you ever? I created these, I put these in my classroom. Everybody got a get out of jail free card. You know, don't have to hand in something. Everybody got a chance card. Like, you get another chance kind of thing. So it's something I was using in my classroom 4 years. Can I do that? Raise your hand if you think no. Raise your hand if you think I got away with it anyway. I emailed Hasbro and said, I'm a teacher, this is where I work, this is what I would like to do, may I? In 45 minutes, I got an email back saying, can you send us what we want, what you think it's supposed to look like? I was like, yeah, it looks just like your cards. And I sent it to them, and they sent me back a contract that said, please sign this, you may use it. Now, my students were like, Ms. Para, this is your whole copyright thing, right? And I was like, bam, contract. But I asked. Because I thought it was cool, but I thought, you know what? This is like 20 years ago, nobody was looking. Why should I care about this today? Why is this important today? Why did I need that contract in today's educational classroom? Social media. Our classrooms are no longer those little windows. Like, they're just not in those little bubbles. We put stuff out there. My kids were like, bam, didn't have to do my homework. Ms. Carroll's get out of jail free card. Tagged me in it on Twitter. Which I asked them to do. But I thought about it. So yeah, blatant copyright violation unless you ask. And my theory is always you can't hurt to ask, right? If they say no, you're no worse off than when you started. So it's always good to ask. How about this one? The school needs new textbooks. Instead of buying hard copies, they find, let's say, a PDF form on the internet. Teachers use those copies distributed through the school's LMS. Yay or nay? Who says yay? Yeah. This happens in ELA classrooms all the time. Oh, you don't have to buy more copies of The Giver. There's a PDF online. Lois Lowry's not getting paid for that PDF. And the minute you put it on a LMS, you've distributed it. You can't do that. You have to get permissions. Okay. Now, if you have an online textbook and your district has permission to be putting that stuff online, have at it. But if they don't, you shouldn't. And again, if you do individually as a teacher in a classroom, that's on you. If your district tells you to do it, you might want to be like, somebody talk to the solicitor because we're not supposed to. And we've all been in the situations where we have to do it because somebody else told us to. School realizes parents aren't able to make the first grade chorus concert because it takes place during the school day. So the school live streams it. Yay or nay? Go ahead. They would have to have permission to do live distribution for every song they did. Unless the songs are in fair use. Like Mary Had a Little Lamb is looking under fair use. What? There's really fuzzy stuff. No. But yeah, you can't just, like if I were to take like a 10-second video of my kid, I could post that. But, because it would be completely out of context. But how many songs are really only 30 seconds? And if you've ever been to a first grade chorus concert, even if the song should take 30 seconds, it does not. Yeah, we don't want to play, like when you're thinking about stuff like this, you really don't want to play with the times. Because yeah, there's like a window, but it depends on how long, how accessible. I'll show you some of that information too. Audience member videotapes a portion of the school chorus concert and post it on social media. Again, snippets of songs that are almost unidentifiable, sure, but they really shouldn't be doing this. That is why when you go into a chorus concert or something, it says that recording devices are prohibited. Because this stuff is all copyrighted. Okay, when they get that music to sing, they've paid for that music. And maybe they've paid for the audio recording. Schools, districts can do that. Like a chorus teacher or band teacher can buy the audio and say, hey, we're going to distribute this. You could pay for that, but it's extra. You're going to give me this. Math teachers looking for problems to use and finds some in a sample textbook and copies them directly. Technically, that's copyright violation. Copy it word for word, it's somebody else's creation. Especially if it's in a booklet, a book that you're not using. You know how we have like stacks of those freebies they give us? Yeah. It's not theirs. Student uses the music but changes the lyrics to Hey There Delilah by Plain White Tees for an English assignment to demonstrate their understanding of grammar.
It's ugly, you should know. Just let it go. Hey there, Miss Hamlet, what's it like having a girlfriend who rejects you and neglects you and completely disrespects you every day? It doesn't have to be this way. It'll be okay.
Can we do that? Okay. That assignment is under the parity umbrella. And it is also following under an educational guise. It's actually on YouTube Live. One of my students made it, recorded it himself, and I tagged the Plain White Tees, and they were good. So.
I'm really curious, do you know if that particular video is monetized on YouTube? And if it were, would there be an issue with that?
It is not monetized on YouTube because it doesn't have nearly that many hits. It's just on my personal thing. It would, if it got bigger, I would need express permission from the Plain White Tees to sort of leave it up there, but it falls in that sort of parody thing, and I get to play the educational umbrella on that. Because it was the whole thing's on him. It's actually really funny. You'll have access to this presentation on it. But there's a couple of, I have my students do that all the time. But we talk about when they do this is parody. Like Weird Al Yankovic, he doesn't just do this for free, he pays those people to use their stuff. Because he's making money off it. Because there's also that clip. Your school's created a YouTube channel to house your daily morning announcements. At the beginning of each show, they choose random popular music to play for 4 or 5 minutes before it starts. Our YouTube channel at our school district got shut down twice because of this. And I kept telling them, stop playing copyrighted music. YouTube will flag you.
What about like a free account from Pandora?
So when they can't play like the free account from Pandora with this running saying this is our music for, you know, ours is called Burn Live. If you're running Pandora in your classroom, that's fine. Nobody's recording it, nobody's using it. These are actually recorded a lot of times and then posted online. You don't own it. So Pandora's like the radio, but you can't, like, you know, I don't know, there's some people in here who are not old enough for this, but the rest of us remember when we used to use the tape deck to tape the songs. That was copyright infringement. And we knew it. We did it. Someone videotapes the performance of the high school musical and sells the videotapes. You can buy the rights to do this through the company that you've rented the musical from. Samuel French says for an extra this much, you can distribute it. Oh, it's all kinds of this. But it's if you pay them, you can do it. If you don't, you shouldn't. And here's the thing. I started with the examples of teachers getting in trouble for copyright because a lot of times we think, no one's going to bug us, it's just a school. 20 years ago, nobody bugged us because it was just a school, but that doesn't happen anymore.
As I mentioned in the session this morning, you don't know your audience.
No.
You don't know who the kids' parents really are, who their aunts and uncles are, who they work for.
Right. I did this last year, Pete, and somebody was like, yeah, like somebody's dad worked for like AMI, and they were like, take that down or we will sue you.
I was involved in a situation where a gentleman showed during the era of videotapes, showing Nova program after 45 days.
Wow.
Kid went home, sat down to dinner when they ate around the dinner table.
Yep.
Dad said, what do you do? Saw the show. Dad picked up the phone, made one phone call before the superintendent sat down for coffee in the morning. There was a cease and desist order and a lawsuit on his desk. Dad worked for PBS in Boston, commuted from Philly to Boston every day.
You just don't know. And we're not doing it like none of us are violating copyright maliciously, but we have to be conscious of it. History teacher uses a page for his class on the school's, creates a page for his class on the school's website and uses images off the internet. What images? This particular teacher used images from Getty and didn't pay Getty. Yeah, they want their money. Those people take pictures for a living and sell them. That's their job, right? So if you're going to do something like this, take the photos yourself. Every photo on my website was taken by me except the really nice looking one of me, which I got permission and purchased specifically to post on my website. It cost me like $80 to have a headshot taken and to put on my website. Every other picture was taken by me. And they're pictures of like bees and butterflies and like flowers and stuff. Because that can get you in trouble. And on the school's website, it's even like twice as bad. Getty actually went after this teacher. And Getty was really good about it. They were like, dude, just take them down or pay us. And so we took him down. But he didn't know, right? But now the school district knows they can't get pinged again. You sort of get a one time like, don't do that. There's enough sheet music for all the trumpets, so we make photocopies. No, we cannot. How many of you played an instrument where you had a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a piece of music? If you were in the marching band, you had 29 photocopies of the same piece of music, right? They're all this big, right? You can't do that. You actually have to pay. The band teachers that I'm friends with will actually, if they need like one copy, I've heard them make the phone call like, I just need one. They're like, yeah, just make one, you're fine. Like, and they'll clear you on the phone or send an email real quick. They need 5 more copies, sure. Or you get like a 5-copy window, like they sort of arrange it. But this is a no-no. And we did this for years. Years. One trumpet 1, 1 trumpet 2, 1 trumpet 3, photocopy it for everybody sitting in that row. Right? English class finishes a novel, so we watched the movie. This one's fuzzy. If a district has overarching movie licenses, which all districts should and they don't, as a librarian, you should be thinking about talking to your solicitor about what like overarching movie licenses you can get. There's sort of, Schwank is the big one. It covers a lot of them. But really interesting is like if you can connect it to content, you can sort of skirt the rule. But again, is that a conversation you're going to have with your kids? I taught Hamlet using the movie that Mel Gibson was in. But I showed it in 5 to 8 minute clips for a month and a half. That did not violate copyright because there was no entertainment value in that whatsoever, except for maybe me running around the classroom like an idiot. Okay, but it wasn't entertaining. But what I did do was then I showed them the Ethan Hawke version, because Ethan Hawke is gorgeous and everybody has to look at him for an hour and a half. I showed the Ethan Hawke version afterwards so we could do a compare-contrast. But I actually called my solicitor and was like, can I do this? And they were like, yes, because you're actually doing a very clear education of something. Okay. Just to cover my butt. This one's one of my favorites. This is a real mural at a real school in central Pennsylvania. Art students create a mural. That's where the wild things are. They also did a giant Dr. Seuss in their elementary school library. It's the high school art students. They got permission. They wrote to Maurice Sendak and they wrote to the Dr. Seuss Foundation and said, may we do this? And they got permission, and the permission included, you have to include a little doohickey that says copyrighted by. This belongs to. But the librarian who went in on this was like, that's a great idea, we have to make sure that we do it right. And they had to clear their images through the companies to make sure that it was the monsters from Where the Wild Things Are. That it is dead on the Cat in the Hat. That it isn't some weird rendition. Right? And it was really important. I thought it was great that they thought to do that. I didn't have this one when I went to Pete last year. Somebody was like, wait, I got another one for you. It's awesome. But just examples of stuff that we're doing. So that kind of brings us to fair use, right? That's the old stuff. Fair use is any copying of copyrighted material done for a limited or transformative purpose. When we're in the classroom, we're sort of playing with the fair use rule, right? What does fair use mean, and how do we get there? So fair use in a classroom. These, by the way, are voluntary guidelines and are not law. So all of this is super gray. One chapter from a book, it says you can copy. That's fair use, one chapter. An excerpt combining language and illustrations of less than 2 pages or less than 10% of the entire work, depending on what that is. So we're talking snippet size, right? Poems of 250 words or less, or 250 of a larger poem. Okay. Now I always did Canterbury Tales. I can copy Canterbury Tales 100 times if I want. He's very dead and there's no copyright on any of that, right? But if I'm making copies off of something that actually out of a copyrighted book, like I can't make the copies out of the book that I purchased to teach it out of. Because that book, somebody got paid for it. Kind of funky. Articles, short essays, 2,500 words or less. Excerpts of 1,000 words. This is like the 10% rule. Remember you said 30 seconds? It's actually 10%. The general rule is 10%. One single graph, chart, diagram, or cartoon. Okay, what it does not mean in a classroom, this is where I got freaked out. It does not mean making multiple copies of different works as a substitute for purchasing the books. That includes PDFs that we put on LMSs. I was like, woo, big time. Making copies of the same works, how about this one? For more than one semester or class. Ever. Guilty. Making copies of the same work more than 9 times. Super guilty. Right? And of course, copyrighted work for commercial purposes. So the minute it starts to get monetized, that's when like, we gotta put the kibosh on all kinds of stuff. anytime you copyright, anytime you're doing anything and you don't attribute the author. And we're really good about this with kids, right? We're super good about this with kids. We're gonna be like, don't forget to cite the author, don't forget to cite the author. But how many times are you using it in your classroom, this kind of stuff? And again, none of this is law. This is all like general things that we should be following. And I got all of this out of Education Weekly research that was done for Education Weekly. But again, it opened my eyes to what I was doing and how much stuff I was using in my room. This is a fantastic resource, and when you get this presentation, this is a hot link to Open Educational Resources. Has anyone heard of it? This is what OER looks like. It is not hugely populated yet. But what OER is Open Educational Resources for teachers, anyone, to put stuff out there for people to use. Stuff that's out of print, stuff that's fair use, lesson plans you want to toss up there. And I thought it was kind of cool. You can actually search for, I don't know, I have no idea what's on here. Let's see, Hamlet, English language arts, middle school. Let's say Shakespeare was bigger. And it connects to Pennsylvania standards. I was like, woohoo, look, Pennsylvania standards. Economics, career education, English language, apparently. It's going to give you a lesson plan. This is free, it's open, and all of you have the rights to add stuff to it. Have I scared anybody yet? What are you thinking? You look terrified. Are you
Yeah. Just that I'm sure we have all copyright.
We've all done it.
Times.
And honestly, at this point, we all have to pull the mea culpa and do what we can to curb it, to pay attention to it.
I just saw a news piece recently about teachers pay teachers. It was interesting to listen to people who are not teachers commenting on it and talking about. I've never even used it, but apparently some teachers are really good, like they have a side business putting things up.
Oh yeah, side hustle, absolutely.
So what is the motivation for them to offer it as an open resource as opposed to selling it?
There isn't. If you're on Teachers Pay Teachers, high five, awesome that you're making a side hustle out of it. I don't believe in it. I started teaching 25 years ago when nobody had anything, and if you wanted anything, you were like begging, borrowing, and stealing from people. And so I will put all my stuff out there for free. One of the things, very interestingly enough, and I get to it a little further, but I'll cover it now, is that in places like Teachers Pay Teachers, you are finding things that are copyrighted by other people being sold under somebody else's name. Richard Byrne, if anybody follows him, he's a tech guy, education tech guy. He's fantastic. He's got all kinds of stuff. Last name spelled B-Y-R-N-E. He found his stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers under somebody else's name. Somebody was making money off his stuff. It was literally his stuff with her name.
I'm so scared to try to use Teachers Pay Teachers because over the course of 15 years, I have no idea how much of the stuff I brought up with a little piece here and
There's
there and mixed it. Like I couldn't tell you what's mine and what somebody else's is.
Right, and that's another, like I won't put stuff on there because I don't know what I may have borrowed or stolen from somewhere, right? We are a really, really interesting group of professionals. Like we're the group of professionals who are like, here, take it, put your name on it, use it, right? So many of us do that we don't think about like the business world where they're like, that's mine and you owe me money for it. We don't think that way. But yeah, so that's sort of why, and I'm afraid to pull stuff down off Teachers Pay Teachers because I don't know, like, where they got it from originally either. Yeah. So something to think about. OER, well, girlfriend of mine was like, why don't you just give your whole presentation on OER? I'm like, because I haven't played in there enough yet. I plan on playing in here. I think that this is a rabbit hole. But yeah. But think about it. Think about the stuff that you've got willing to put out there. I mean, Matt Miller this morning was like, go get my stuff, it's free. Now he has a book, and you can buy his book, and I've read his book, it's fantastic, I know, right? But he's got stuff he's willing to just give to us. And he said, change it for your own personal use. That's what we do. But it's when we've reached out into the realm of business and entertainment that we have to start being very careful about what we're using and how we're using it. I don't think that inherently, and this is me being completely naive, I know, that inherently businesses, musicians, they don't want us not to use their stuff as educational tools, but it's their living. And so, you know, it's a really fine line. If we're talking about credit in the classroom, how many of you use signal phrases? I don't care what you teach. Do you know what a signal phrase is? So in education, when we're writing papers, you're going to say, according to Richard Byrne, tech guru at www.richardbyrnefancypants.com. So no matter what subject you're teaching, if your kids are writing information out in a paper, they should be giving credit to their source as they're talking about their source. Right? I'm taking graduate classes right now, and every time I get information from my source, I have to give the author's last name, and I teach APA, and I'm using APA, and I have to put the year of publication in parentheses, right? That's a signal phrase. That's telling someone else, this isn't mine, I got it from that guy. It's this long, it's simple, it's a citation method, and it teaches kids that they have to say where they got their stuff from. If you notice on the bottom of a lot of my slides, there's a citation. There's a whole citation page at the end of this too. Like you can go click on every link that I was playing. And trust me, it's a rabbit hole. Bring a link. So and you've heard speakers do this. When they say like, this is where this information came from. I did it as I was talking about the Education Weekly presentation. Woman's name was Elizabeth Starr. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. It just adds to your credibility. I always tell my students, I'm like, look, if you tell me that you have information and I say, where'd you get it from? And you go, oh, no. Then how do I even know that your information is accurate? Or if you tell me, well, I read it on BuzzFeed. Okay? I'm a little more likely to be like CNN. Okay? I know there's bias, but CNN's a little stronger than BuzzFeed, I hope. Right? I just ask them to. So spoken and written, really great way for us to talk to our students about being open about the information that they've gathered, and we need to do it. How many of your students have ever questioned where you know the stuff you know? A lot of them assume we just know it. But I'll tell them where I got it from. I went to Pete and C and I was learning from such and such, so and so. Right? It's good practice. My poor 6-year-old, he will come home and tell me new things he learned. And I was like, where did you learn that from? And he says, Mrs. Will, which is his first grade teacher. But that's what I'm asking him for. Like, absolutely. Or did you figure that out by yourself? Or he'll say, I told Mrs. Will this because I was on Ryan's Toys on YouTube. He tells me where he gets his information from. Right? He's 6. Now, he has an ELA teacher for a mom and a math teacher for a dad, so he's like, it's constant with him. But my 12-year-old does the same thing. She knows I'm going to ask her where she got it from. But it's a good habit. This is what a signal phrase would look like. This is an APA format. I'm sorry, her name is Elizabeth Starr. It's Linda Starr. Linda Starr, columnist for Education Weekly, explains the rules educators should be aware of when it comes to copyright. This is what it would look like written. Super fancy. My high school kids loved it. You know why? Takes up a lot of space. I was like, don't BS me, just put the whole thing in. I could do that? Yeah. Look how smart you look. Right? It's a silly trick, it works. Okay. Next one's embedded in presentations. How often do you have your kids do presentations? In those presentations, have they cited their information on the slide? Have they cited where they got the photos they found? right? We live in a world where kids will put together a PowerPoint with like 400 pictures in it. Where'd you get them? Can you use them? And I'm going to show you some sources on sort of how to play with those. And of course, a credits page. Okay? At the younger ages, it might not look like an MLA works cited page or a APA reference page, but get them into the habit of saying, I got this stuff here. Because what do we do when we look at the reference page? How many of you have ever run a website and looked at the reference page and clicked on those references to go somewhere else? That's what good academic people do, right? Show them. Under that umbrella of business and entertainment, we have to teach them that they don't have this umbrella. They don't get to say, well, I did this for educational purposes and no monetary value. If you're going to make a YouTube video, you can't use that song. Do you remember when those videos were really popular of like the one shot through the school, right? And they were like videos of one shots through the school. Lots of schools did them. Schools that got too many hits on YouTube had YouTube taken down. Said you've now hit like monetary status. You can't have that up there anymore. And my school does a battle of the classes where each grade puts together this ridiculous montage of songs and does this ridiculous dance to it. And the rules that we give them for the songs is that they have to be short enough that in this montage you've sort of destroyed the original meaning of any of the songs, so it can't be like nailed for copyright. The teachers do it's hysterical. Right. When we're talking about fair use, these are the things we have to think about, right? And we're talking about business entertainment fair use. We're teaching our kids how to use this stuff outside the educational umbrella. We want to talk about purpose, nature, amount and substance, and effect. The law says that if the purpose is transformed, mostly not for profit or educational, we're good. Falls under fair use. The law says, is it published or not? If something is published, chances are, if it's published and creative, it's copyrighted, and it doesn't fall under fair use. Unless it's been out of print, you know, Chaucer, Shakespeare. The reason Shakespeare is so done all over the place all the time is because it doesn't cost anybody to do it. Amount and substance, this goes to percentage of use. 10% seems to be the number I keep finding, right? And what parts of it? Like, you know, everybody knows the opening music to, I don't know if anybody else did this, but I walked up those stairs this morning. When I got to the top, I felt all rocky because it was a long way up, right? So I want to play that music. That's important. Everybody knows what it is. Instantaneous copyright. You know exactly what it is right there. If I use another part of that song, somebody might be like, wait, is that thing from Rocky? Yeah, that's just later in the song. So we play about that. Okay? And effect. The reason that parody fits under fair use is because it was educational, right? And its appeal and audience were completely outside what the plain white tees were ever going to use. Like, plain white tees aren't going to use that, right? It's just for a bunch of English students in a high school. Like, it's only really funny if you've read Hamlet. And if you have read Hamlet, it's super funny. Think about the stuff that we're talking to kids about and asking them to do. Are we asking them to fulfill fair use? Things that are not copyrighted, love this list. Titles, names, short phrases, slogans. Nike can't say that you can't use the words "just do it" in a sentence unless you are talking about Nike and their logo, "just do it." I can say, you know, oh, can I go do that? Just do it. That's not copyright violation. But if I'm talking about Nike and I'm saying, like, you know, Nike's slogan is "just do it," then it's different. Like, if I'm talking about a race and I go, ooh, just do it, and I'm wearing sneakers, right? Seriously, That's what we have to think about. But the names, titles, short phrases, icons, not copyrighted. A washing machine is a washing machine. I don't know how many times you draw it. A heart is a heart, right? Unless it is very specific to something. Variations on letters, types, colors, fonts. Okay, the letter A is the letter A. There's only so many things you can do with it. Now, you should buy fonts when people have done the art to do the creativity to them, but generally speaking, the law says that they are not copyrighted. Basic ideas, procedures, methods. The basic idea of how to bake a cake, sure, not copyrighted. How to bake Martha Stewart's very specific strawberry shortcake, that's copyrighted. Okay. Works consisting of information that is entirely common property. Common property is anything that is outside of copyright law, anything .gov, common property. Anything the government puts out there is common property. And you can use it. Public domain is sort of this window. Anything published before 1924, and anything in the window of 1924 to 78 that the copyright has not been re-upped on. Okay. Anything authored by the federal government. Okay. And copyright protection is a 95-year thing. So if I print something today, 95 years until it's out of copyright. I had to change this when I did this last year. It was a year sooner. So this changes every year in that window. Okay. This is what the 1976 revision of the U.S. Copyright Act says. No works published after 78 will pass into the public domain until 23, which is not that far away. I was looking at a calendar the other day. That's not that far away. But yeah, we've got a 95-year window. Ideas, words, digital images, sound effects. This was what the Tokyo 2020 logo was supposed to look like. This is an already existing logo for a theater in France. This guy sued. The Tokyo logo does not look like that. It's the same letter. Ideas in there, that's the Ken Burns thing I had up. Words, there are authors. Some author on BuzzFeed took somebody else's list, put it on his, put his name on it, and published it on BuzzFeed. He got fired pretty instantaneously. Effects in music. Those of you who remember Ice Ice Baby, right? There's all kinds of more frequent things. I think Katy Perry just got nailed recently, and I couldn't hear the similarity in that music. That was really fuzzy. Like the beats where you had to pull most of the music out to find the beats that they were talking about that was copyrighted. And it was a Christian artist, and he won. And God bless him. But yeah. And self-plagiarism, that's a thing. Who knew that was a thing? Who did not know that was a thing? You publish your own thing, and then you use your own stuff again. You have to cite the thing you published the first time. This is happening in colleges, by the way. Students handed a paper for one professor, handed the same paper for another professor. Self-plagiarism, you're done. Thanks for coming. I was shocked. But it's something to think about. These are all hot links. You can go play with those. If you don't know what Creative Commons is actually a website where you can talk about how to cite things. If you see this symbol, this says, hey, give me attribution. You can have my stuff, but give me credit. This one says you can use it, but don't make money off it. This one says you can change it a little bit, just make sure you tell people the original was mine. And this one is you can use this, but you can't change it at all. We can actually go on and create our own Creative Commons like citations for our stuff. You can go there, it's a really cool website that you have. This is my favorite page. This is a set of free and fair use tools. Adobe Spark has a 3-part thing. It's Adobe Spark page, Adobe Spark video, and Adobe Spark post. It's for posters, videos, and websites. You can use their images and it cites their stuff for you at the end. It's awesome. Okay, and it's free. You can go into Google image search and search for usage rights. Many of us have already done that. We have to remember our kids do. But
pretty sure Adobe Spark uses the Unsplash. When
They
you
do, they
search
use
for-
Unsplash and Pexels, but they
Yeah.
also have their own set that they actually have rights to. Yeah, Pexels and Unsplash are for pictures, Pixabay is for pictures. You can filter for free. Now here's the thing, a lot of times I will use pictures from these places and it says no attribution required, but then there's a guy's name there. I don't care that it says no attribution required. I ask my students to put their name there anyway. Please give attribution to work. And then in the works cited page, it's cited. Like this is where I got this from. Okay, Photos for Class is a good one. Pics for Learning and Flickr CC are two new ones that I learned about. Okay, these are all photo. And all of these are hot links. Filmstro, Incompetech, and Videvo, they're all video and music. Incompetech is music. Pages and pages of free audio. And it tells you like, this one's creepy music, this one's classical music, this one's sexy music. Some of it's weird, like sometimes you just play with it with your kids, you're like listening to it, you're like, oh my god, what can we use that for? I spent a day just like, guys, let's find music and then write things about the music we heard. Right? And then these two down here are Motion Picture License Corp and Swank, are two companies that school districts can actually pay for video movie rights outside the educational sort of realm, if you're going to use it for a video night or something. I was the National Honor Society advisor, and we wanted to do a video night, and it was Christmas time, so we used the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know, that everybody sees on TV with Burl Ives, as Frosty, as the snowman with the cool hat. But that's outside of copyright. Like, that was never copyrighted, so you can do whatever you want with that. And it's actually posted that you can do that. That one and Frosty, those two have no copyright attached to them. They're free and fair use. So I was like, hey guys, let's use these. They're like, why? I was like, because they're free and fair use. We don't have to pay anybody. Kids liked it. We made about $300. It was a movie night. We watched somebody else's kids for an evening. It was fun. But we had to think about it because the kids wanted to do what's the first one they wanted to do? Oh, with the train. Oh, Christmas movie. Polar Express. Thank you. Right? They wanted. I was like, okay, somebody look that up. It was like $600 to show it. We weren't gonna make that money on the inside. Because we were only going to get one film, it's like exorbitantly expensive. Unless your school buys into this yearly. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's cheaper for the school districts to get the umbrella than to go and get the one. Yes, ma'am.
It's so interesting that you can pick a book up off of the shelf and read it to a class.
You can pick a book up off the shelf and read it to a class. You know what you can't do? Videotape yourself and put that baby online.
But you could buy a movie, but you can't show it to your class without that.
Right. Not without educational. If you were doing it under educational guise, you could play that card.
Okay.
And we play that card, but it's like, to me, when I was teaching the older kids, I was trying to explain to them the difference between the umbrella I got to hold and the one that they don't get once they leave.
It's just an interesting concept.
Absolutely.
You pay for both of them.
Yeah. And the thing is, to read
Concepts.
books to kids, like the minute you videotape yourself reading that book and you put it online, you violate copyright. We had our librarian this summer was like, well, I did that with like 6 books. And I was like, great, did you get permission? She was like, what? Well, I wanted to read to kids at home. That's great. We need permission. All I have to do is call the company that does the book and say, can I do this? A lot of times they say yes. We don't know if we don't ask, but you're in trouble if you don't. I definitely pull I'd rather say I'm sorry than ask permission, but when it comes to this, we really have to be very aware of it. Yes, ma'am.
Just to throw another one at you, that is
Oh,
a
please.
resource I found of is Muse Open. For sheet music and recordings, like people volunteered their time to go into a studio and make recordings that they're offering.
That's awesome. It's called, what's it called?
Muse Open.
Muse Open. So wait, I'll add that to my list. I will look it up a bit. Cool. No. Alright. This is that presentation. Anybody have any questions, comments, examples I might be able to add to this? Like, are you... This is a rabbit hole, ladies and gentlemen. And it's really interesting for me to talk about, because now that I'm working at the IU and we're using a lot of examples in a lot of the like PD that I'm doing, we have to play with like where the copyright falls and stuff, especially when the IUs do stuff for profit. It's interesting.
Just a comment, IU 17 last, they're in Rivers Hall.
Mm-hmm.
They do swank licensing at a consortium, so if
That's
you're
awesome.
interested, talk to them and you can get into consortium and it'll save you some money.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so IU 17's got Swank under their window. Yeah, I'm trying to,
They're here.
yeah, and they are here today. Well, they're here for the next 3 days. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. It's just something we have to think about, ladies and gentlemen. And for me, it's about teaching my students that outside that umbrella, they have another thing they have to worry about. So.
I know you can get district-wide pricing, or that tech department just looked at that. Taller buildings, but most of our buildings were paying for the umbrella. Some of them were just paying for like the one movie a year that they would show. And they were like, this is silly. We should
Yeah.
bundle it together.
And the people who know best is your solicitor. Like your district solicitor knows the law on all of this. So if you're curious, ask them. Because everybody's got a district solicitor. We all have a lawyer on staff. Do you do?
I was just gonna make a comment
Yeah, please.
that I didn't realize until you started mentioning it that I may take an illustration or a diagram or something for science class and say, this is absolutely fair use, I'm not worried, I'm just gonna do it, without thinking about how do my students perceive that.
Yeah.
And then it dawned on me as I was sitting here, the presentation I was in this morning was about media literacy and helping students recognize legitimate and reliable sources, and that them being aware of where they get their information and citing their sources, they're going to be more aware of when they're looking at information to find out where it came from.
Yeah. It's about being conscious of it. Again, I started teaching in 1998. Some of you weren't born. Started teaching a long time ago. We didn't think about it because our classrooms were just that, 4 walls, and what happened in your room stayed in your room. That doesn't happen anymore. And we don't want it to happen. We want everybody to be like, check out what's going on in our classrooms. Pay attention to us because what we're doing is awesome and we've got your kids. But that means that everybody's looking in those windows too. We just have to be careful and conscious of it.
I think it's also tricky because we now have a wide variety of resources on the internet. And you,
The
like,
internet.
just because it doesn't have some kind of, like, you have to pay to access this or block on it doesn't necessarily mean it's fair to use.
Yep.
But that's also confusing. Why is it out there? How did it even get out there if somebody didn't put it out there
Yep.
for others to use?
Just because it's there doesn't mean it's there legally and it's free for our own use. Yeah, it's a big deal. So I have kids who are like, oh, go ahead and use that picture. I'll just take the watermark off it because they're really good in Photoshop. Please don't. Please don't.
Or they'll use it with the watermark.
Yeah, or the watermark on it. I was like, at least tell me where you got that from. Why? Because it's not yours. There's a big X down the middle of it. Yeah. Just something to think about. Like I said, it was something that I sort of started to play with, and I've seen much more sort of access to it and people really thinking about it, especially now that there's a lot less library science in colleges now, and so that's a huge part of library science. Like copyright is a huge part of library science, and I am not a librarian, but I love all my librarians because they know so. But like there's a lot of those programs are going away, so the more we need the information, what, right?
Undergrad is like
Right, you can't
legit
find them.
unheard of.
And
I mean,
graduate's
Georgetown
getting-
still has a program, but like
Yeah.
you go on the librarian chats, but like
Yeah.
the undergrad, what?
Yeah, undergrad libraries. Yeah, and it's a thing, but it's something that the more the internet gets, the more everything becomes public, the more we have to pay attention to it. So we really appreciate all of you coming. Thank you. Anybody else? Comments, questions? I take snide remarks too. No? It's too late for snide remarks. We need drinks. So. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now you just kind of creep me out.
I did not mean to creep you out. I
Sound
apologize.
like you like, yeah, no, I'm just looking at the rest of it then.
Yeah.
I was curious. Was it her or Haley that wanted?
Oh, okay.
That's not what's happening.
7 years. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm wondering if I'll be a bad example of that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm telling you, rabbit hole. I don't even know what I'm looking at.
All represents in the fall. I'm not excited about it.
The percent of 30 seconds for talk or music,
Yeah.
it's strict.
No, I know for
No more than
music.
30
it's-
seconds.
Yeah, no, I know. And the other thing with
Because they think of Bohemian Rhapsody.
yeah, but in that 30 seconds, it's actually whatever's.
I finished it.
That's the caveat that has to go on all of them, whichever is less.
Yeah, it's whatever's less because like Bohemian Rhapsody is 6 hours long, so 10% is not 30 seconds long.
No, I finished that one. This is everything in Netflix series. I tried to like.
Music supervisor, very good friends,
And
very good
honestly,
cars.
I might not feel like, I might.
She was coming to town.
Yeah. I don't
She was known for at that time inviting high schoolers to back her up.
Wow.
So are we gonna meet Lynn sometime?
All be arranged
Yeah.
to get a junior high band
And
and choir
Shane
back her up
and
there.
yeah.
I got hit with, what are you doing tonight?
Oh.
Nothing.
Hi.
Want to go to Shania Twain? All you have to do is pay for the ticket. Sure.
I'm
What do
not
I have to do?
sure.
You
Yeah,
have
I'm,
to take photos from.
I'm
Okay.
Using him as a doctor.
Right.
It was down the spectrum. He said, you have to be here by
Yeah.
certain, by this time, go to this door.
I'm really sorry.
Went to that door, they gave me the pass.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
They said, at this song,
Oh,